Today, we are covering one of my favorite topics, honestly, which is story selling. Okay, not storytelling. Well, yes, storytelling, but in a way where you are able to attract the most amazing clients from your audience because you are going to learn how to become so good at sharing the story that feels supernatural to you and for you. Okay. So before we dive in, I just want to wait like a few minutes for everyone to jump on and let me know that you guys are here live. Um, Let me know also how your October, how your week is going. It is Halloween this weekend. Are you guys doing anything fun, anything exciting, anything that is going on? Let me know into the chat. Now, I always love to share the backstory of why I created specific masterclasses, how I chose the topic. So as we wait for people to tune in, jump in, let me know you guys are here in the comments. When I was developing this masterclass, a few weeks ago, I made a post in here asking all of you what you would love to see for this month's free masterclass. And I got so many responses. So many of you guys saying that you want me to do one on creating content and attracting clients and sharing a story and systems and Instagram and like so many different things, right? So one thing that I noticed that was kind of like a common theme that everyone really wanted to learn right now was how to attract clients to you in like a natural way. Like that's what I saw. The common theme a lot of you guys really wanted to learn right now is how do I attract clients that it's simple, it's easy, it's natural, and they're not just like any clients, but they're the most aligned clients ever. So this is why today's training and today's topic is all about storytelling and story selling. Okay. So if you are here live, comment below and let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely max, fucking amazing, it's great, 1 being not so much, on a scale from 1 to 10, once again, 10 being the most, how do you feel about your storytelling skills? When you are creating a content, jumping on, going live to share a story on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you are able to craft and share a story? Okay, and once again, there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just getting a general consensus of where everybody's at, because every time I do a training, I want to make sure I'm always speaking directly to where you guys are at. And a lot of it I can tailor to that. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel like you're at in your storytelling skills? Katrina here live. Good to see you here. Is it Carly? Good to see you here. Joining live from Mexico City. Love it. Chase here from Cabo. Daniela 4. Nahar, hello. Chase 7, 8, but Def don't do it enough. Okay, cool. So what I usually find is people share stories through content to their friends, to their family. However, their stories either don't do what they want them to do, meaning they don't attract the right type of people, or they're not sharing like the right type of stories, right? It's like, I feel like at this day and age and this stage of like social media and creating content, like we know that stories attract people to us, right? So what I want to start off with for today's training, and there's a good amount of what I'm going to cover, and if you guys stay towards the end, I'm assuming this will be anywhere from like probably 30 to 45 minutes, close to an hour, because I am going to do a mini Q&A session at the end. I already have a lot of your guys' questions that I asked all of you already in the group. So at the end, I will answer questions. And if you have questions as I'm teaching, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if it's like a good time, I'll answer it right away. Otherwise, I'll come back to it and answer it at the end. Okay. So what I want to start off with is going through what I love to call my signature storytelling framework. Okay, now I developed this honestly a few years ago when I was first really getting into coaching, understanding how to create content, understanding why people watch, why people follow. A lot of you have been following me for a while. And if you're new here, hello, I'm so happy you're here. But for those of you who don't know my story, I'm just going to share a quick backstory. Get it? You can't start a masterclass without sharing a story. I started to create content, build my brand, and start my journey of entrepreneurship when I was 19 years old in college. I'm 26 now, so I've been doing this for a long time. When I first started to create content, I naturally just documented my life. Therefore, my content was basically a story every single fucking day. So a few years into it, when I finally realized I had built a brand, I had built an audience, people would reach out and be like, oh my gosh, I love your content. I love seeing you do lives on the bus as you're going to class in college. I noticed and I realized a lot of these people who found me on day one still follow me till this day because they connected to some specific piece of my journey and of my experience. Okay. So what happens is a lot of people, when they're trying to think of creating content, writing down a story, they are trying to create a story from something instead of curating through an experience that they have already had. Okay. So what I want to start off with is I'm going to pull up my signature storytelling framework and we're going to go through it step by step. And from there, and you guys can either do this live with me right now if you have a piece of paper next to you, or if you have the document up, you're taking notes, or you can feel free to do it after too, because we're going to do some action items in terms of you guys actually coming up with story ideas. All right, so let me just pull this up. And if you have attended some of my other trainings, you may have seen this before, and some of you may have not. Let me just check the chat here quick. Shahid 4, Rock 7. Sweet. Okay. So this is what I call my signature story framework. I love to break it up into 3 pieces. Now, a lot of the times when people think of sharing a story, they think about either something that's day to day, right? Like something that just happened to me today, I'm sharing a story. While other times people might just think about, oh, I need to share a story of how I just had this milestone, or I just got this client, or something amazing happened in my life, or I want to be sharing a story of one of my previous past experiences. Okay. There are so many different ways for you to share stories. What I'm sharing with you guys today is the most curated and strategic way to share a story that will attract the right type of buyers into your audience, into your profile, into your offers. Okay. So this is my 3-part story framework. And what we're looking at is defining the old you, defining the transformational you, and then defining the new you. Okay. Now, let's first take a look at defining the old you. Now, not always, but I want to say like 90 to 95% of the time, you were your ideal client a few years ago. Okay. So actually, before I get into this, let me know in the chat, all 11 of you guys that are watching here live, and to all my wonderful people that watch this on the replay, comment below, let me know, what business are you in? Or if you're a business coach, or not a business coach, if you are a business coach, let me know. But if you're a coach, let me know in the chat what you coach on. If you're a service provider, let me know what service you have. If you're product-based, let me know what products you're selling. But let me know in the chat what you sell. And if you even want to let me know who you're targeting, drop it in the chat too. So what I was saying is usually you are your ideal client a few years ago. So for me, 3 to 4 to 5 years ago now, geez, it's already been that long. A few years ago, I was my ideal client back then because I was just starting in business. I was craving to attract clients. I knew how to create content. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to build a good business model, and I didn't know a lot of things. So basically, who I was a few years ago is my ideal client right now. Okay. So when you define the old version of you, you want to go back in your storyline, in your journey, and you want to take a look at where were you and what type of feelings, what type of experiences, what were you actually going through when you were in that stage? So for an example, when you are trying to come up with a story or create a piece of content and you want to include the old version of you, this is basically where you're at either like a low point or you're at a point in your life where you wanted to make a change and there was a specific problem. Okay, there was a problem, there's a pain point, or you can even look at it from the other side in terms of there was desire there, but you hadn't done anything to change it at that moment. Okay, so let me look at the chat here quick. Biz mindset transformational coach, college scholarship coach, collaboration coaching for spiritual teachers. So all of you guys all choose this specific niche for a reason. There is some point in the past prior to you becoming a coach that got you into this. Okay. So I want all of you guys to think about a specific moment in time where there was either a low point, a problem, a pain point, or a pure desire for you to go after something that you loved. Okay. And to give you guys even like a deeper example, I'm just going to take Daniela, you're a transformational and mindset coach. There could have been a moment, and I'm just once again making this up, there could have been a moment in your life or in my life where if I was a transformational and mindset coach, a defining old moment, right? The old version of me could have been when I was in college and I got broken up with a guy who tore my entire self-confidence apart, and I had no self-esteem at all whatsoever. That was like a very, very bad time for me, right? So what I want to do is take a look at when I was at that stage in my life, what is a specific experience or story or moment where I was in the old version of myself. Okay. So whether it's right now, just thinking about it or writing it down on your notes, I want you guys to define a old version of you. And one thing I always share with this is, and this is like my signature, like golden story I always share with like all of my audiences. The old version of me was when I was in college. I was like a freshman, sophomore. I was so lost in my life because for those of you who do know like my deep core story, I graduated high school getting out of a 4-year toxic relationship. My mom passed away when I was 15 years old. So when I went to college, I truly didn't have a path of what I wanted to do in my life. I was grieving. I got out of such a bad relationship that did really tear my confidence apart. And for me, I was really stuck in this point in my life where I would skip classes, I would party all the time in college, and I just didn't know where I was headed. That was the old version of me. And back then, the story that I used to tell was that story because my target back then was people who were in college, people that were a lot younger, who didn't really have a path and where they wanted to go in their life. So that old version of me worked for me to connect with where my ideal client is at right now. Okay. The old version of you is probably where your ideal client is at right now. So if you can go back in time and think about the feelings, the experiences, the opportunities, how you truly felt, it is much easier for you to define that old version and put it into a story. Okay. So once you define that, then you want to get into defining the transformational you. Okay. So what part of your journey, of your story, of your life did you come across a person, a moment, a book, an experience, something that was like, I am done moping around. I am done crying. I am done being in this low point, or I am done watching on the sidelines. I am done seeing everyone else win. And I know for a fact that I have what it takes to change my current situation. What was your transformational moment that allowed you to shift into, then we're going to get into the new you, which is basically where you're at now and how you got over what was happening over here. So when I love to look at the transformational you, how this becomes really powerful when you're sharing a story. And after we go through the story framework, I'm going to give you guys examples. Why this is really powerful is because your ideal client is in the bridge between these two right now. They're like either really stuck in the old you, they're stuck at their low point, or their time to like make a change. They're at that point in their life where they are actively looking for you. They're looking for content. They're looking for some sort of activation or inspiration or even permission for them to go out and change what is happening in their life. Okay. So then the final piece of you sharing a story is showcasing the new version of you. So after you went through the transformation, after you took the action, where are you at now? Right? For me, back then, the story that I used to share was old you, college, partier, skipping classes, no path. My transformation was I found a mentor when I was in college. When I was 19 years old, I found a mentor who came and spoke at my university. He was looking for interns for his business. And I was like, I want to do it. And he was my first mentor ever. He was not a coach. He was a mentor. And from there, that pivoted into me basically creating everything that I've created today. Okay. So this is basically the skeleton of what you want to use when you are creating a piece of content that involves a story. Now, before I shift and pivot into like the next section of what I want to talk about, where a lot of people, I don't want to say necessarily go wrong because there's so many different ways you can share a story. But what I see people skipping out and missing on when they're sharing stories in content is they don't dive deep enough into these two areas. So what I see a lot of people doing is they will post a piece of content that shares a milestone, a win, a breakthrough, where they're at now, which is like the new version of themselves, but they won't take it back to the pieces, the feelings of where their ideal client is feeling right now. So what happens is your ideal client and your audience will read your content, will watch your videos, they'll get super fucking inspired and excited and activated by the new you because you're showcasing what's possible for them. However, they might not actually reach out and buy from you because they're unable to relate nor connect to you because you haven't showed where you're at previously or where they are at. One of the main things your ideal client needs to know before they ever buy from you is knowing, does my potential coach, potential mentor, does this person understand where I am at? Your ideal client wants to be heard and they want to make sure that you're able to help and you're able to support them. So if you're creating content that doesn't showcase that piece of it, it will be harder for them to reach out and buy from you. Okay. So I just went on like a riff. Comment below and let me know if this is making sense, if there's any questions coming up, and let me know what's been your biggest takeaway so far. Okay, because immediately as we're even going through this, I bet a lot of you guys are already thinking about stories and experiences and moments that you can share like right off the bat. And every time it's so fun for me to do this, because every time I do a masterclass on stories and creating content, I've been fucking creating content for years now. I always think of so many content ideas. Okay, so my mind's already like all over the place. And so I'm gonna stop sharing this and let's look at the chat. Let's also pull up my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything, because there's still a good amount of what I want to cover. Makes sense. Let's see. Makes sense. Yes. Thank you. Of course. Of course. So after we have gone through and identified and know that this is the structure that we want to use to share extremely captivating stories, the next step and the next question you guys are probably asking yourself now is like, how do I really identify and start off with stories that go hand in hand with my current business and with my offers, right? Like, how do I identify the right type of stories to share? Okay, this is really easy. I want all of you guys to write down either in your notes or in your document, right on the top, old me, and then right on the top, transformational me. Okay, you can do it now or you can do it after this training, just as long as you do it eventually. And I want you guys to backtrack either 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, depending on where you're at in your journey. It's going to be different for all of you. Backtrack 3, 5, or 10 years. And I want you to take a look at experiences, opportunities that you did, pivots, day-to-day moments, low points, high points, and anything that happened when you were either an old version of you or transformational version of you. And you will come across so many different experiences, moments that you can share stories on. So if I were to backtrack an old version of me, this was like back when I didn't even know what the hell was going on in my life. I was completely confused and lost. I can truly like think about so many moments. Freshman year in college, sophomore year in college, where I was like literally I vividly remember this too. I'm like backtracking, but I remember there would be times where I would be in my university library and I would just be looking at my textbook, looking at the homework that I had to do. And I would be like scrolling on social media and I would only be focused on what am I going to be doing that weekend? I don't want to be doing my homework. What's going to happen after graduation? Like, I would be thinking about so many different things that I wanted to do, but I never did. That on its own, like that small piece of story and context that I just shared with you, that is probably happening to one of my ideal clients right now. Or one of your ideal clients right now. They're just going about their day, but they can't even focus on their work because they're thinking about all the things that they want to do, but they haven't done yet. That's a piece of like the old version of you. Transformational version, if I look back at my experiences, pivots, opportunities, day-to-day moments, I always think about the first time I ever spoke on stage. This was when I was interning with my mentor that I just told you guys about. He put on an event and I helped him put on that event. And for those of you who don't know me, I used to be extremely shy fucking person. I would never want to have conversation with anybody, let alone speak on stages. let alone give 2 TEDx talks eventually, let alone be a coach, let alone do this fucking training. But when I was 19 years old, my mentor told me to go speak on stage at his event to introduce him before he spoke. That was such a transformational moment for me because I leaned into the scariness, the excitement, the nervousness of me speaking on stage when I had never done that before. How I can tie that back to my client is there might be something they really, 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 really want to do, but they're just so afraid to do it. And that piece of my story can get just like the perfect amount of push for them to lean into that and actually go do it. So that right there, like those are 2 different just experiences I just thought of right now. So you guys can probably think about so many stories, literally probably like 20, 30, 40 things that you can write down both for old and transformational you for you to start creating content on. Okay, so let me look at the chat. I get covered up in details. Yeah, so I'll address that right now. So I get covered up in detail. So one thing that I like to tell my clients when it comes to sharing stories is don't share too big of a story, or if you have a really big story, share only a piece of it. When you look at like the story framework I just shared with you guys, it seems like a lot because it is like old, transformational, then new, but you can take one moment from a full experience and turn it into a story. So for an example, it can be a moment in your day. It can be the first time you met someone. It can be the first time you, got on a call with your friend. It can be literally the moment that you wanted to go out and create your business. Like the thing is, when you get stuck into details, it's mainly because it's either too broad or too big of a story that you're sharing, or you are way too focused on making the story perfect. Now, this is the last thing that I'm going to address in the training is find your own natural way to share stories. But since we're covering it right now, I'll just speak on it quickly before I move on. It's so easy for us to get into the details when we want to either share the perfect story or we feel like that is needed in order to get like the point across, right? But in reality, you can have a huge story go on and on and on forever, but the main thing that you want to piece out is, once again, the old you, the transformational you, and like the new you. And you can literally do that in a few sentences and piece out what happened, old version, what happened, transformational, and what happened new. Okay. And once again, it'll come to you by practice, depending on how you guys love to share stories. Carly, love the bit about ideal client being who I was some time ago. Yes. Yeah, experiences, opportunities, pivots, day-to-day moments, low points, high points. Sorry if I'm talking like fast. When I get excited when I'm doing trainings, I will just like speak super fast. 3 years ago today, I quit my job at the IRS to go all into entrepreneurship, wanted to move to Cabo full time. From cubicle to Cabo, I fucking love that. You guys know me, I love like acronyms and like things with like the same letter, all of those things. It's so fun. So that is like literally the best way that you can identify and share stories in your content. So the next piece is, okay, we have the story framework. We know how to identify and share the right stories. How can we actually attract clients through those stories? I promise you, this is one of the most simplest ways for you to attract clients through your story. Have a call to action at the end. That's it. Simple. And your call to action at the end can be to an offer. It can be to a training. It can be to send you a DM. It can be anything, depending on what is going on in your business right now. Now, that's the simplest way, is having a clear call to action at the end. Now, what is going to be contradicting, because I always contradict myself, is when you share stories that come to you from the heart, there is no end result. There is no expectation for you to receive anything after you post that piece of content that shares a story. Clients will come. Clients will come because they connect with your story so much. There was a time, and I've shared this story. I share this story and this experience so many times with you guys and with my clients, but I'm going to say it again because it's just a moment that keeps repeating in my mind because it was so powerful. This is probably a few months ago, back, I want to say in like April, May. There was a piece of content that I just felt so called to share for the longest time. And to give you guys context, some of you probably remember it, some of you probably saw it, and some of you guys probably have heard the story before. I created a piece of content back in April or May that was kind of like touchy-feely on certain subjects, but it had like this thing happened to me so many times, and I know that this thing has happened to other females in my audience as well. So I have been on social media for so long, and I always get hate comments and judgy comments, especially from random males on the internet, right? Comments like, she probably gets her money from like stripping or other things, like really just like, you know, unneeded comments, right? She probably makes her money from OnlyFans. So there was a comment that was left on one of my, I think, I honestly can't even remember, on one of my pictures where, guys, like I was literally wearing maybe like shorts and a t-shirt. That's it. Regardless of what I was wearing, one of the comments was like, oh, I thought this was like an ad for OnlyFans or something. And for the longest time, I wanted to create like a piece of content, just sharing like my thoughts and my beliefs around why people comment that type of stuff, how you don't have to, you know, hide yourself or not wear what you want to wear if you're a business owner. Like, it had nothing to do with my offers. It had nothing to do with my clients. It really had nothing to do with my business. But I shared a piece of content that was just so natural to me. I literally wrote up in the moment and I hit post without the expectation of needing or wanting anything. Okay. And in that post, it basically talked about how this person left a comment and how in my past relationships with my exes, it was always like, don't wear certain things, don't do certain things. Is it because you're a female, you can't be self-expressed? I created that piece of content and I did not expect it to blow up. It was probably my like best performed pieces of content that month. And I kid you not, 3 clients reached out to work with me. 3. I didn't mention an offer. I didn't mention like literally anything about sales, like nothing. And they all wanted to work with me. So that is the perfect example of finding your own natural way to share a story with things that happen to you in the moment. And although that was something that happened to me in the moment, happened to me in like the new version of myself, I still went back and talked about when I was in the old version of me, when I was in toxic relationships with my ex who would judge me and even make those comments in regards to myself. That's what I experienced. But now look at me, like I truly don't give a fuck, right? So that was like I'll never forget that post because that was something I never shared before, but it was something that was so powerful that clients reached out and wanted to work with me. So when it comes to attracting clients through stories in your content, yes, you can have call to actions. I always recommend doing so, but some of the most like juiciest stories that are just so dear to your heart and happen to you in the moment and for you in the moment. And it just feels so natural for you to share, like follow the feeling and actually share it. This is where I always tell my clients, like, don't get hung up with, am I sharing this perfectly? Do I have the perfect like storyline? Do I have the perfect like headline? Do I need to go more into detail or less into detail? Like, don't worry about that at all whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're feeling and your words and the experience of what actually happened comes through, that's all that's needed. Okay. That is all. Let me look at the chat. Lucy, you've just given me the greatest idea. Yay, I love hearing that. Lucy, also strippers are also successful businesswomen, so it's not an insult. Yeah, no, totally. And that was like a whole conversation that I had with people. It was honestly such an amazing post because it sparked so many amazing like conversations. Like there's nothing wrong with people who strip. There's nothing wrong with people who do OnlyFans, but like that is such like a taboo thing that people frown upon it, right? So I just love like those type of conversations. Like that's also a perfect example to talk about things that might not be said mainstream, but it does relate to you and it does connect with you, right? It's like something that's a part of my story and a part of my journey that I talk about here and there, but I don't talk about every single day is one of my very toxic relationships when I was in high school, right? It was very toxic. There was like emotional, physical abuse. And that is something that I probably know that a lot of people in my audience have gone through in some moment in their life. And when I do share that, people always reach out and connect to that piece, right? And what I teach has nothing to do with that, right? But it has everything to do with sharing your story and being that leader and owning your power and becoming that new version of you. So you might have an experience or a story or something that happened to you in your past or in the transformational moment of you, or even now that you can reconnect to missing pieces and piece together. It's such like a beautiful story that people can connect to right now. Okay. Oh, I love you so much, Lucy. This is one of the reasons I follow you. Oh, I appreciate that. I love you guys so much. So let's go into the last piece because, oh my gosh, we're already 40 minutes in. I always just like talk. I love doing these trainings. Okay, so let's wrap it up with this last thing. Then we're going to go through Q&A, and you guys want to stay for Q&A because some of you guys already asked amazing questions. So the last piece of what I want to talk about is, how do you find your own natural way to share a story? Okay. How do you find your own natural way to share a story? Some of my clients ask me, I am like not a natural storyteller. I do not know how to share like a story with details, put someone in like the scene, like how do I do it? Sometimes people will like ask me, you are such like a natural storyteller. Like when you share stories on lives and your content just feels so natural, how do you do it? What I want to first start off with is your way to share a story is going to be your way. My way works for me because that's just how I speak, that's just how I share. So what works for me may not necessarily work for you, right? I see such amazing coaches, amazing business owners on my social media who share the best stories. And it's very like vivid. I can literally see myself in their story, meaning they put a lot of attention to detail in terms of where they're at, the smells, the taste, what they're listening to. Like it's very intricate, almost to a point where like I truly am reading a book and they are visually creating that scenery for me, right? That's what people think about when it comes to like creating a captivating story, but that's something that I would never do. There might be moments in my content where I'll like, have something that's very like sensory right? Like I might be like sitting and scrolling through like my phone, like that's like, you can paint a picture with that. But when you guys look at my stories and feel free to look at my content, I don't go that much into detail because that's just not me. I don't like, it doesn't come natural to me to like have so much detail in my content, but I know it works for other people and it works for their audience and for themselves. So for me, when I share stories, I love to think about when I'm talking to my best friend or my family or Andy, my boyfriend, and I'm sharing with them something that happened yesterday, how do I talk to them? Me, I do not go into details in terms of I was sitting and the wind like blew through my hair and suddenly this person came up to me. Like, I don't talk like that when I'm talking to my best friends and my family. If you talk like that, fucking amazing. That's how you're going to create content in your natural own way. But I don't talk like that. So when I share stories, I'm like, guess what happened? I was at blah, 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 blah. And this is what happened. Like, oh my gosh, it was so fucking crazy. Like, I will talk like that. And that is how I will share stories on social media. I will talk in the same language that I will talk when I'm on FaceTime with my friend or with my sister. So for you, when you're thinking about how can storytelling be so natural to me where it doesn't feel like I'm fucking creating a book and I'm curating something that's so intricate, that is where you will naturally flow the way that you want it to be. Okay. Because it's easy to just get to the point and be brief about what you're talking about, if that works for you. And if it doesn't, if you really do love detail and you like to add a lot of detail, what I would suggest you to do is, once again, either break up your story if it's a really long story, or just focus on like one sensory piece, right? So if you're focusing on like, I saw this and I listened to this and I tasted this and I smelled this, focus on one sensory detail that you can include into that piece of content or that story, right? So instead of including all of them, just choose one. And that will definitely cut down the amount of detail and in-depthness amount of detail that goes into creating a story. Okay. Whew. We just covered a lot in 45 minutes. If you guys loved this masterclass, let me know in the chat. Let me know what's been your biggest takeaway, what really hit home for you guys in this masterclass. I'm just going to take it to the hour. I'm going to spend 10 to 15 minutes answering questions because I'm going to pull up the questions right now. We had around, I want to say like 5 or 6 questions that were dropped into the Facebook group. So I'm going to pull them up right now to answer them. And if you guys that are watching live have a question, drop it into the chat. Okay. So there's 2 specific areas that we had questions on. So let me first take a sip of water. Okay. So first question to address. This question was asked by Haya, and I know that she's not watching this live, but let me know that you're watching this on the replay. Her question is, every time I tell a story, I go on and on and on. How do I make it short, sweet, and captivating at the same time? So Haya, since you're going to be watching this on the replay, I bet a lot of your questions that you have in terms of how to make it short is going to be addressed after you watch this. But to reiterate, if it's very long and it goes on and on and on, it's probably a story that can be condensed and you can only take just a small piece of that story and create a story out of that, or choose just like one specific sensory detail that you can really zone into, right? Like for an example, if I were to share a story of when I first met my mentor in college, I could go into so much detail about, what was happening in the room and what we talked about and how I felt. But if I'm sharing one specific piece of content mentioning that experience, I would just say something like, the first time I met my mentor, I was super sick. And I would focus on the sensory of, I wasn't feeling that well. Instead of focusing on, and this was the conversation that I had with my mentor, and actually have dialogue in the content, I would just talk about how I'm feeling. Okay, so that's really going to help you in terms of getting more specific and not going on and rambling when it comes to your stories. Okay, and how to keep it captivating. If you have that specific storyline in place, old you, transformational you, and new you, then the audience will keep either watching or reading or listening to see what happens at the end. Okay, so that was that question. And if you guys have any follow-up questions as I'm answering this, let me know. The next question we have is from Kristen, and I think Kristen is here live. If you are still here live, Kristen, let me know in the chat that you are here. Okay, this is a great question. I've been wondering where to draw the line with vulnerability. I know it's important for people to be able to relate, but also some stuff could be too much information. Is it like publicity where all attention is good attention? I love this question. And it's so funny you asked this, Kristen, because I literally just had a call with one of my one-on-one private clients today. We were talking about this specific thing. Yeah, you're here at work. Good. So you can still listen in. So when it comes to sharing stories that are like a vulnerable, touchy-feely, like when should I share a story and when's like the fine line? First things first, I never, ever tell people to share something to build your brand if you are not comfortable with sharing it. Okay. So if there's like something that's in your life that's happening and you're like, should I share it because it's going to help my business and my brand, but it doesn't feel right for me to share it, don't share it. Right? Because when I look at stories, I love to share things that are like true to my heart, but I also know that's going to actually help my audience. And at the same time, you might be in different feelings. People can create stories out of fear, out of anger, out of sadness, out of doubt. There might be something that happened today that you're so fucking pissed about. I see people do this all the time. And it actually hurts them that help them. And I see them dish it out on social media. They're super mad. Something happens with their clients, with their team, with someone on the internet, and they will basically either bash them on social media by sharing like a story. And for me, what I like to do is I'll create a piece of content in the moment of me feeling something or me sharing a story. And if I'm still in that same feeling and that same energy, I won't post it right away. I'll go do something else. And then I'll come back and look at that piece of content that I wrote earlier and see, does this actually help my audience? Or am I just offloading my stress, my anger, my sadness to them because I'm not taking the time to just neutralize myself? And that on its own is really going to help you distinguish what you should be sharing and what you shouldn't, because once again, there is no right or wrong between what to share and what not to share. It also just comes down to self-preference, right? For me, a lot of my audience knows that I don't share intimate details about my relationships, about my family, about my friends, about my partner, because I just don't do that. I like to keep that side of my life a little bit more private because the rest of my life is on social media. So this is where like it kind of comes down to you and what you want to be sharing. But in terms of like vulnerability and things that might be like hard to share or difficulties or struggles, is it actually helping your audience, or are you kind of just releasing whatever needs to be released on social media? Okay, let me know if that was helpful, Kristen. And one thing that I just thought about, but I forgot to mention earlier, is this is also why I love to journal. I fucking love to journal. And if you guys journal, going back to previous journal entries a few months ago or a year ago, those are amazing content pieces that you can create too, right? In my journal, I have like 3 journals that are full that I've been journaling for years. And sometimes I'll go back and look at my journal entries and be like, oh my gosh, this day I remember I had the worst day, but I still showed up. Or this happened, it was amazing. And I can create content pieces on that, right? And having a journal is just so amazing because you can literally go back to a specific day a few years ago or a few months ago and extract what you're feeling there and put it into a piece of content. Yeah, Kristen, journal entries for content is a great idea. I love doing that. It's the best. It's so much fun. So that was Kristen's question. Let's go into the other part. And we had like, I think 2 more questions. So, oops. Because we had 2 areas where people were asking questions. Okay, so this question is from Nahar. Nahar, if you're still online, I think you are online. Let me know in the chat that you're still here. Nahar's question was, it would be good to get an idea of what to post. You seem to have so much going on. What if we are boring? What should we post? Once again, great question. So a lot of times, once again, people will look at me and my content and just like my stories and be like there's so much going on, right? She already has a business. She has clients, like she's doing a lot already. I feel like I'm just doing the same thing day to day. I don't really have a story. When I was 19 years old and when I met my mentor, he asked me this question, what's your story? And my response was, I don't have a story. I've done nothing. Nothing is going on in my life. I was in college. I had no direction. I was partying. Like there's nothing amazing going on in my life. And then a few years later, I realized I had a story. And back then my story was what happened in high school. My mom passed away when I was 15, bad relationship. And I was on the journey of trying to figure myself out. The thing is, stories don't have to be like rags to riches. They don't have to be extremely low points. The majority of people have amazing lives, right? I've had clients who have amazing childhoods, right? Nothing went wrong. Great family's still together. They went to college, they graduated, got a job. Like your story doesn't have to be something that's like outrageous. But guess what? The day-to-day is what people will connect to the most. Because most people, they are just living in the motions. They are living in the day-to-day, and that on its own is a story, right? There might be something that's happening right now today. It might even be sharing about this. Maybe you're watching this right now live or on the replay, and you're like, you can create a story out of this. I was on a training earlier today, and I fucking realized that I've been holding myself back thinking that I don't have a story, but I do. And this is what it looks like. I've always been stuck on the day-to-day motions until I realized that those specific days have led me up to now. And this is what I'm going to be creating next. Follow me in my journey of doing X, Y, and Z. And like stories are the best when they are like the smallest details of something that happened. Okay, so that on its own, like, I hope it really inspires you to take a look at what are the small day-to-day things that you can share that will relate to your audience, because odds are the small day-to-day things, like they're doing the exact same thing. And if anything, more people can probably relate to somebody who is in the day-to-day motions, but he or she is creating something more or different or new or helping someone else, because that's what a lot of people are doing right now. Katrina, that was a really good example for right now. Yeah, exactly. I love that. And then Nahar's second part question, and should we pre-plan them? Ooh, this is a great question. So this is the last question I'll answer unless someone has one live, because we're almost at the 4 o'clock hour point, is pre-planning stories. This really depends on you. For me, I went through seasons in my business where I used to batch content. So I would have different topics and stories that I would create content on for like the following week. Now I'm at that season in my life where I'm very intuitive with my posts and with my stories. So what I really like to do is in my notes section on my phone, I have a tab, I have like a folder that says content. During my days, if something happens that's exciting, that's fun, or bad or sad, and I'm like, ooh, this would be a really good piece of content. There's to be something I'd really love to share with my audience or with my clients. I will write that down in my notes section. And it could just be a topic, it could be a headline, it can be a feeling, or it can be like I'll write out a post or like half write it out. And then I'll go back and finish writing it when I want to post something. So this really just depends on you. If you're the type of person who likes to batch and pre-plan content, do that. If you're more intuitive, just have something on your phone where you can keep tab of different things that you can share stories on. Okay. Woo. So that was an hour for today, story selling masterclass. I hope all of you guys really, really enjoyed it. We are, of course, are going to be back next month for November's masterclass, and be on the lookout. I'll probably make another post asking you guys what you really want to see in November. And also actually let me know right now, whether you're watching live or on the replay, what's the next topic that you would love to learn about in November? Okay. And also coming in November is a lot of exciting things in terms of programs and memberships and Black Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Katrina, thank you so much. Of course, I'm so happy you were able to make it live and everybody else. Okay. So that is all I have for you guys. If you want to stay in the loop of my offers, everything that's going on in my world, make sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram if you aren't already. Like I post a lot on my stories and on my feed, as you guys know. But like in the next few months before 2023, I'm coming out with things that are for everybody. Okay. And I talked about this a little bit in my content piece the other day. For the longest time, I created offers and programs and coaching only for like the skilled coach who already had a business, who already had clients, who wanted to scale to the next level. Next month, I'm also coming out with a membership that is going to support somebody who is literally starting their business from scratch and they want to scale. Okay. Monetize social membership. There is a wait list for that right now because it's not officially launched. If you know for a fact that you want to monetize your passion, you want to build this into a full-time career, full-time business, and you want my daily support, just like what I'm doing with you guys here right now, and you want the link to sign up for the Monetize Social membership waitlist, honestly, just send me a DM. You can even drop in the chat, I want to be in the waitlist, send me a DM or drop it in the chat and I'll get you the link. It's going to be like a very low ticket membership, by the way, to get my daily support and helping you build your business. Okay. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. And to all my wonderful people that are watching on the replay, comment below and let me know that you are watching. So until next time, I hope all of you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. Happy Halloween if you guys are doing something this weekend. And I will catch you guys on another live, or of course, definitely next month for next month's masterclass. Okay, make sure that you guys stay unforgettable. Bye.